Hello, this is Brandon Winbush, and this is my video 422 response to No Zombies Allowed. I think this is a pretty interesting format that we have this week for our 422s. I like it. However, I think it's harder. Uh, I think it's so much easier just to type things to a forum post. Um, when you're actually on video, and you're speaking, I think it's much more like face to face. Even though it's not face to face on my end, it is sort of like that because I'm having to put myself out there and talk about my views, which is a little bit uh, nerve wracking. But anyway, I really liked the reading. I thought there was a lot there, and I just enjoyed the whole narrative of um, Mitchie talking about his students and how he tried to make them more critical consumers of media. I think that was a really great thing. My first quote from the reading is, "What many of us do when we turn on the TV is turn off our brains. We don't really think much about what it is we're watching and why." And that's from page 91. I agree completely with that statement. Sometimes, I think we'll use television or other forms of media as a way to unwind or sort of relax. And when we relax, we do sort of start to think less. And I think the danger with that is if you're using television to sort of unwind and you're turning off your brain, things are even if it's just going on in the background, it's still having an effect on you. And if you're not consciously thinking about what it is you're taking in, that can be dangerous. I think that you are more likely to succumb to misinformation and things like that. Now, I'm guilty of that myself at times, just sort of sitting down watching the television mindlessly when in reality, we should keep an eye on what it is we're watching and think about its credibility and everything, and not just believe everything that we see. Okay, my second quote from the reading is, "Many people listen to music without giving much thought to a song's meaning." And that's from page 99. I agree with that as well, very much. A lot of times we'll hear a song on the radio or sort of, get a beat from a song and it sort of plays over and over again in our heads, but we're not really listening to what it has to say. And, in my personal opinion, every time you sing something or listen to a song or something like that, it's sort of like you're agreeing with it. It's sort of like you're behind whatever it's promoting. And I think sometimes, when people don't know what the words to a song mean, they can be inadvertently supporting something that they never would support outright, if they were to know what it is they were listening to. I'm going to use rap as an example. Not that I don't think that a lot of rap musicians are very talented, because I'm sure a lot of them are. But that's just one very good example of how, that genre is saturated with sort of misogynistic lyrics and ideas and themes that are actually quite harmful to people. They talk about sex and drugs and things, and violence. And, I've asked people before, why are you listening to that song? Like, oh, I like it. It has a good beat. But, if I were to ask that person, do you think that it's okay to beat women, or do you think it's okay to use illegal drugs? They'd probably say no, but that's what they were listening to. So, you know, in the reading, he says, guys, as it turns out, any song is not okay. Yeah, because, there are just some songs I feel that have messages that are just outright negative, and I don't think that there's any real justification for promoting things like that. So I agree with that statement. My third quote from the reading is, "Still, I often wonder if what I'm teaching the kids in my class is making any difference, or if it's being carried over into their real-life media encounters. Sometimes it seems like a lost cause." And that's from page 103. I think that's very relevant just to us as teachers, honestly. We give what we can and we try and teach and educate our children, but when they go off back into their worlds, we're not really sure how much they take with them. We hope that they use what we teach them to become better people and to become more discriminating when it comes to the things that they consume, and that they're that much more, informed. But I guess that's not always the case. As I said before, I think it's really cool that the speaker was teaching, these critical skills to his students about how to consume media. I think it's really great, but I'm sure not every one of those students, thought about everything that they watched from that point on critically. Yeah, so I found that interesting. And then my fourth quote that I found very interesting as well was, "Why is it funny? Because it's happening to her and not us." And that is actually from the part in the reading where they were watching the episode of Jerry Springer about the 13-year-old prostitute. And I found that interesting because, I thought of how easy it is to separate ourselves from people we see on television. It's as if we forget that they're people. You know, we see people on television, like on shows like Jerry Springer or Cops and everything. It's sort of like a farce. We look at them and it's almost as if they're fictional because who in the world would be that stupid, or who in the world would carry themselves like that? But what we forget is that as humans, we still have to care about one another, and it's never okay to really ridicule people and to just make a joke out of people, even if they're not, being proactive when it comes to making sure that they are portrayed in a certain light. I think that statement was interesting and very true. Why is it funny? Because it's happening to her and not us, and that's true. Because if a situation were happening to us, we wouldn't think it was funny. If it were something harmful to us or our families, if you had a relative who was a prostitute, that wouldn't be funny to you. That would be, alarming, or it would make you uncomfortable. But watching it on TV doesn't always make us as uncomfortable as it should, I think. So my questions, I have two questions. One of them, how different would our society be if we were all intelligent, critical consumers of media? And my second question, since this book was, of course, written over a decade ago, do you think that 2014 has seen a more accurate portrayal of the average American family on television? What about minorities? Okay, and there were two connections that I made with the reading. The first one dealt with the activities that Mitchie would have his students do about the song lyrics. I was in a Principles of Leadership class my first semester of freshman year, and we had to do an activity very similar to that. Of course, we were coming at it from the standpoint of leaders and how they use songs and things like that to rally people to a particular cause. And a lot of times, they have people adopt a certain viewpoint. It's very easy to do that in a song. And I found that to be a very interesting and very useful activity because it's true, by using certain language. Think about all of the anti-war anthems over the last several decades that have sort of, I guess, opposed or have sort of criticized our government or whoever the president was at the time. And think of how many people, support those viewpoints, after listening to those songs. I thought that was very interesting. But that's my personal connection because we were made to do an activity very similar to that in the class that I was in. Now, another connection to the reading that I made was when they were talking about how unrealistic a lot of the sitcoms can be, especially when it comes to problem solving and conflict resolution. when I was young, I used to watch the show Full House, as I'm sure a lot of you have. I'd be surprised if anyone didn't know what it was. But I remember at the end of every episode, now I was rather young, but I still remember thinking, at the end of every episode, they all just hug it out and, kiss and make up and everything seems to be okay. Even being quite young, I thought, oh, that's very unrealistic. It just seems like, they'd cue the sad music and, they would all just be happy again and everything was all right. And I just remember thinking that, that's not the way it happens in real life. And it's true. I think sometimes, and I do think that there are shows today that perhaps are more realistic when it comes to family conflict or just conflict in general. But, a lot of times the media that we consume isn't as true to reality, as it could be. Yeah, but that's the end of my 422 response. Be sure to leave your comments and other talking points in the forum, and I'll see ya.